We're here on Upper Fifth Avenue to talk about one of the most famous buildings in the world. Designed by Frank Lloyd Wright, it's one of the most famous examples of modern American architecture in New York. Oh, you've got to be kidding me. Now, there are other Frank Lloyd Wright buildings in New York to visit. This one is just the most famous. Now, the person on the street probably doesn't know all the Frank Lloyd Wright projects in the city. Let's test that. So we're here with Doug. And Doug, can you tell us what other Frank Lloyd Wright buildings can we visit in New York other than the Guggenheim?
Oh, well, the one closest to here is right down at the Metropolitan Museum.
Actually, that's very good. That actually was bought by the Metropolitan Museum of Art. It's a house in Minnesota. They brought this one room. It was built in 1912, 1914. They brought it, put it inside the Met. It's in the American wing. That's great.
Oh, and then down on Park Avenue, there's an automobile dealership that he designed right in the 50s. It's
wow.
Well, it's a Mercedes-Benz dealership.
Right. It's actually 56, 57th on Park, 1955, Frank Lloyd Wright's first building in New York.
Yeah, it used to be a Jaguar dealership, but that was years ago. But you know, it has a ramp. Kind of reminds me of the Guggenheim. It's really cool because the cars line up on it. Oh, and then down in the East Village on St. Mark's, right at the St. Mark's
That was
Church.
never built, though, so they don't really count the towers.
Okay. Out in Staten Island. Out in Staten Island, there's the beautiful William and Catherine Cass house. It's the only house here, and it was a prefab house back in the 1950s. Isn't that great? And and I don't want to stretch things too much here, but Brendan Gill did say...
But we're not here to talk about Frank Lloyd Wright. We're here to talk about the recently restored facade of the Metropolitan Museum of Art. There have been restoration walls up for a couple of years now, but they're down and everything looks spick and span and beautiful. The first building, which was built in the 1870s by the architects of Central Park, Vox and Mold, is deep inside these later buildings. The central Fifth Avenue facade was built between 1895 and 1902 and designed by Richard Morris Hunt and his son Richard Howland Hunt. The north and south wings were built shortly afterwards by McKim, Mead, and White. The expansion of the front stairs and the pools came much later, between 1969 and 1975. Hey, here's that guy that knew so much about Frank Lloyd Wright. Let's see how much he knows about Richard Morris Hunt. So, Doug, can you tell our group the name of the architect who designed the Fifth Avenue facade at the Met?
Oh, it was Richard Morris Hunt, until he died, and then it was his son who took over, Richard Howland Hunt.
Okay, can you name another structure designed by Richard Morris Hunt?
Well, here in New York City, most famously probably the pedestal at the Statue of Liberty. Oh, and speaking of statues, if you go out to Cadman Plaza in Brooklyn, you're going to see this beautiful statue of Henry Ward Beecher. And Richard Morris Hunt designed that pedestal as well. Oh, and Carnegie Hall, the studio wing. And in my neighborhood, Lower Broadway, there's a beautiful building called the Roosevelt Building. It's a gorgeous cast iron structure.
But we're not here to talk about Richard Morris Hunt. We're here to talk about hot dog stands. The Metropolitan Museum of Art is the most visited attraction in New York. More people come here than the Statue of Liberty and the Empire State Building, which might explain why these two hot dog stands are the most expensive in the city, the two most hotly contested spots. In 1997, when I first started tour guiding, the cart on the north side of the stairs was renting for $296,200. This one, which is slightly more trafficked, was renting for $316,200. Two brothers bid for these. The licensing fees, by the way, go to the Parks Department, and the brothers paid over $600,000 with just these two stands. The only bigger revenue producer was Tavern on the Green, which paid over $900,000. Last year, the city made almost $3.5 million from its concession stands in Central Park. And today, the most expensive stand is the one on the north, $326,000. The one on the south is still up for bids, I think, because of the price set by the Parks Department, $375,000. The hot dogs, by the way, are only $2. The ketchup, though, costs $64.
How you guys doing?
Oh.
Hey, you got to try one of these. This is great. This is a New York specialty. Have a bite. It's called a hot dog, right? And it was invented by an immigrant from Germany named Charles Feldman. Back in 1871, he was the first guy that took a Frankfurter and put it on a little bun. And he said it's a hot dog. He also invented the hot dog stand. And out there in the Coney Island section in Brooklyn, he had the biggest German beer garden there was.
Let's go.
It was great.